will do so then. And I'd like to welcome everybody. Heather set up these sessions to help, kind of have refreshers and review maybe some points that may not be so obvious along the way. If you look at my quick agenda here, you'll notice that the agenda is really pretty much straightforward. I am going to ask for you to speak up here in just a little bit and put you guys under the spotlight, not in a bad way, but in a good way, because I really want to make sure that if there's something that you came to this session just going, I need to know X, Y, or Z about the PEAK classroom, that gets answered even before I go through any of my pointers along the way. So I am going to put you right in the spotlight in the beginning. I'll review any of the items you have, but I would like it at minimum kind of want to know why you thought this was a great place to come and sign up. And then I do have 5 pointers that I've picked out that I hope are not the most obvious because I'm hoping that it'll be something either new or a good reminder of maybe not the usual pluses of what we have in our curriculum and within PEAK Classroom itself. And I think I even have a bonus in there for a 6th one possibly. So that's where we're headed today. So excuse me, but truly if you could, just take turn, release the mic and let me know if there's something specific you want or, what you were thinking when you first signed up for this. That would be really helpful just to make sure that I do guide this as is most appropriate for those of you that are attending. So Jessica, would you like to go first? Oh, Jessica, I'm not sure if you're dialed into the phone. Are you able to hear me?
I'm here, yes. I can hear
okay.
You.
Awesome. So
I actually just joined because I, was out for a little while this summer and wanted to just make sure I wasn't missing any new features.
That sounds awesome. Good to have you back too. I'm also not quite used to the last name yet. So congrats on all of that. I'm going to have to get the new name into my brain here. So, but awesome.
Email's still the same, so Gardner's fine.
Okay. But still, it's nice to have the last name kick in. Christy, anything from your perspective?
I think the main thing that I just wanted to kind of hear it again and just review a little bit so that it's fresh in my mind.
Sounds good.
The main reason I signed up, yeah.
And that is just fine. Robert, anything specific or more just the review like the others?
Yeah, I just want to validate that what I'm anticipating you tell us is what we're already telling customers.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds awesome. Well, if it's not what you're already telling customers, I hope maybe it's an aha. It's like, oh, that's a new one, or I hadn't thought about it that way moment. And Summer, anything specific on your end?
No, pretty much the same as Robert. I switched roles to client services recently and saw the refresher and just wanted to make sure I'm still up to date on everything.
Sounds awesome. Well, that is exactly what we will do, but I always have one rule in training or any type of presentation I give. You can't sit quietly, okay? So if you have those questions, please don't rest on, waiting for Donna to say, do you have questions? Along that way. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to try to go through my pointers first via the PowerPoint here, just to get things and conversations going. But I really want the other half of the session, after we go through the 5 pointers, to actually be in the classroom and see some of these more on the live rather than just the snapshot mode. But I want to make sure that at no time do we not get through the pointers, so I'm going to start with going through them all, at least in the basics. Jessica, as you mentioned, you were kind of busy during the summer period of time. I can't imagine what else you might have been doing at that time. But with that, there were some updates that happened this summer, and although most of those updates were more in the background and things of that nature, There were a couple of things specifically that I think were big wins. And probably to me, one of the very, very biggest wins that we've had with a Blackboard update in all the years that I've been with either Aventa or FEU at this point is the inline grading. And this isn't just a win for the instructors, this is a win for the students as well. So this is a pointer that actually affects not just districts that may be using their own teachers. This is a pointer that's a win for absolutely anybody. In the past, in case you don't know, what used to happen on our written assignments, and we do have quite a few written assignments in our traditional courses, is that a student would have to upload a paper. We'd always actually ask for them to upload in a RTF format, just in case they were working in Pages and our teachers had Word or something like that on their computer. And then the teacher would have to actually download the paper. They would open it up. They would add all their comments, probably using Word review features and things like that. They would then upload, probably write a little bit in the feedback box, and then they'd probably keep their fingers crossed, toes crossed, and everything else crossed, hoping that the student would actually open up, drill down far enough, open up the document and actually read their comments that they wrote back. So it was a very labor-intensive process for the instructor. And in reality, let's talk reality, although some students would be probably clamoring for that feedback and drill down and open it up. The student you probably wanted to do that most would probably look at the grade and just move on and never open up the document. So the really cool item here about this inline grading is if students upload a Word document, a PDF, actually it works on a PowerPoint even though I was told it didn't. If someone is a Mac user, doesn't mean that they can't, and they only have Pages. They just need to remember to export to either a Word document or a PDF for this to become fully functional and not have to do the download thing. But that's very doable from a Mac. I have one. Anything like that in a traditional Word type item, students upload that. Doesn't matter if the teacher has that item on their computer, that software on their computer. They actually see the document immediately, and as you can see in the picture down here, they can draw, they can highlight, they can cross out, they can add comments, they can use different colors. There are 4 different color options that they have for different types of things that they're able to do in here, and they never have to download the document. It's all right in as soon as they open up the page to grade. It is something that needs to be uploaded and not just typed in the text box, but those are the directions we provide to students along the way. So it is a huge win. On the student side, why is it a huge win? 2 reasons. 1, students no longer have to download and open up the document to see the teacher's responses. They actually, when they click on the name of the assignment to see the feedback, it immediately pops up just as you see here. They're actually able to navigate through the comments and skip down to the second page if it's on a second page comment. They also do have the ability to actually download the annotated comments as a PDF, which I think is a good thing because they can't download it as a Word doc, but they do download it along the way as a PDF, and then they'd actually have to write the changes rather than just clicking accept. Robert, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question or a comment?
Actually, it's a question. When you mention that the teacher can draw on, is that because they printed out the student work and then they make their notes, highlights, drawings, and then they scan it and upload it again? Or is there a way that you can do the drawing in particular? What I was wondering, I've never heard of that feature, that you could draw on a student's work with like a laptop or what have you.
Nope, right here. Do you see that draw that I just circled around?
Yes.
They actually, it may not be the prettiest drawing. I mean, that was my drawing of my moon phases there, but it gets the point across. They can draw with a mouse. They can, there is that draw feature that will have 4 different colors for them to use.
Perfect. Thank you.
So the draw, the special type of comments that you see here, the highlighting, the actual text box, and the strikeout, all 4 of those or 5 of those features are available. And under comments, they actually have a choice of several different comments. So to me, this truly is probably the biggest win. And it's a biggest win that I do think is probably, I won't say underutilized because the teacher probably sees it when they go in, but isn't known really. And I really think it is a good selling point, and it's a good thing to remind people of or talk. All of our teachers will use this because we enforce that a student needs to upload it in this manner. If a student does upload an rich text file, I will tell you this, it does not appear, and then that would go back to the old download file. We were originally told it should work, but in practice, it's not there. So really just having the student upload Word, upload PDF, something of that nature is what you really want here. Anybody else or any other questions on the inline? I will take silence as a golden on that one, and I'll move on to pointer 2. But pointer 1 to me is the really big positive. The second one here is not so much related to programs that use our instructors, but since we have more and more each year, kind of the tilt of using our instructors percentage-wise versus using their own district instructors, the landscape's changing. They want ownership. Well, part of that ownership is the ability to modify. And so I do believe when district partners use their own instructors, they don't want to go crazy in the beginning because it can be overwhelming. I always suggest that you kind of start the first semester, just get your feet under you. You might even want to get your feet under you for the first year. And then really start to think, okay, how can I own this program and own this content to be my own? Okay? And that is the power of modification. Notice, however, that I have a huge peace symbol up there. When I do train and we talk about modifications, I always try to get people to remember peace, because if you use the peace symbol, how many numbers is that? You got to unmute yourself. There we go. We got 2. Okay? Because any modification to a graded assignment is going to be a 2-step process. You always either have the hiding, and then you have to do something in the grade center, or you have the adding, and then you have to go do something in the grade center. Neither of these is difficult, but it is always important to remember 2 steps, because the most common error people make is that they do step 1 and they forget to go adjust the grade center, and then we get a ticket saying the grade center is not functioning or something along those lines. So just being aware that it's a 2-step process is helpful. But where is the power? There's a lot of modifications that actually go past, and I apologize there. Oh, now I'm really just, here we go. I'm skipping ahead too much. There is the power of not just adding, which is what most people think of as modifications. I want you to look at the first one I have here, which is adaptive release. If I say adaptive release, what's the first type of course that pops into your mind? And again, you bet, Robert, exactly, credit recovery. We preset that adaptive release. Those courses are preset with adaptive releases. They load, it's there, they function. I'm going to start with the credit recovery, and let's talk about those modifications. If a district, again, is using their own teachers, not using our teachers, but using their own teachers, it is possible that if they don't like that 70%, that they can change it to 60 or to 80 for mastery, whatever they want. The important thing to know on that, because I know people say yes to that, the important thing to know is that there's a time investment. A lot of times when I work with clients, when they find out that they have to touch pretty much every single content link and every single quiz to make that change. They're like, yeah, that's not worth my time investment. I'll live with the 70%. However, I've worked with a few clients that go, understand that, okay, it's not difficult to change, but it means I have to touch probably a minimum of 10, 50 probably links along the way to make the adjustment. They do it, they make the time investment, but they get what they want. But it's important for them to know that there is a time investment there. If someone's using our instructors, for the most part, it's going to be 70%, 70%, 70%. There are, on a few occasions, something that is done specially that's approved ahead of time, but always would need to be approved ahead of time along those lines. The other thing, though, that I'm not sure everybody realizes is adaptive release can be used in our traditional classes as well. Nothing to do with credit recovery. I've had scenarios where people use adaptive release just on the graded assignments so that the graded assignment that follows the first graded assignment won't be visible to the student until after they've attempted the first graded assignment. Can anyone here come up with a reason why a district might do that? What problem are they trying to solve? Anybody? If you're on mute, don't forget to unmute yourself. Well, students rushing, and even more importantly, Summer, because you're right on, yes. You don't want them cherry picking. You don't want them skipping the writing assignment because they know that to them seems to take more work than doing a multiple choice quiz. So I have had programs, again, it's a time investment because you have to touch each of those graded assignments, but that positive of assuring that the students were going in order completely outweighed the time investment that they made ahead of time. The other use case scenario of adaptive release is not based on a grade or based on an attempt so much, but is based on membership, predetermining. Now, this isn't going to be used so much with a graded assignment, but this could be used with support materials a teacher adds into the course. All teachers have the ability to add their own support, their own review, own practice documents, and so forth. But maybe there are a few special ed students, or maybe you have a group of ESL where you want to add, maybe your group of ESL is Spanish-based as their primary language. Maybe you have a document that does a little bit of English-Spanish comparison for them. Maybe you're co-teaching with the ESL teacher or the special ed teacher, and that teacher wants to add a document, but they don't want everybody to see that document. You can predetermine by membership that only a certain group of students will see that document. So to me, the adaptive release has tremendous power, not just in our credit recovery, but actually has tremendous power for either getting review to a student that doesn't do well on a quiz or a test, or review or documents to a special group of students. I just want you to remember adaptive release can be way more powerful than just our CR courses, and that is a form of modification. I mentioned the hiding and the adding. District teachers always have the ability to do that. The one item that they cannot change is content, though. If you're on a content page, they can't adjust what's there. They can adjust anything else. They can change our quiz questions. They can adjust our assignments. They can add their own assignments and so forth. Robert, question?
Yes, in California they have what they call power standards, or they are the standards that people are going to know that they're going to be assessed on. And I'm wondering if you see this as a useful way to get the student closer to mastery before they are going to be assessed, as a way to, kind of pace it.
I think you absolutely could use it in that regard. Absolutely. And you can do it where you don't release something until someone achieves a certain grade, or you could release it based on an attempt, but at least then someone's not flying through completely blind and just, sometimes kids get to be assessment crazed and never access the content, So I do believe that, if a district wants to, I always say it invests time, but investment of time is not always a bad thing. You're not spending time maybe writing content in your lesson plans, but you're going to spend time to organize this course so that it works for your need. It's a trade-off. So I do believe that that could be a positive in that situation.
Thank you.
Yep. The other adaption that I have here, besides all the building of your own content and so forth, is the colors in the grade center. This, to me, is almost as big of a win as the inline grading. If you are a teacher and you look at our courses and you're new to our courses, we use point system. So a student gets an 18. I don't know if 18 stinks or if 18 is a 90%, okay? Because I don't know my points right off the bat. Teachers have the ability to add color codes to the grade center. And Robert, I am going to put you on the spot, but not in a bad way. And I will show people how to do this when we have the session for using your demos to their max and setting them up and so forth. I would suggest you do a couple of, have a course where you can demo this grade in the color code if you're working with teacher district that's using their own teachers. Because what it does is you could have an assignment show up, and if absolutely everybody, the way you set it up, appears red, as a teacher, I don't need to dig any further than just seeing that color to know that, ooh, maybe I need to do an assignment, a review offline, because all my students are struggling. Or maybe I need to go dive into that assignment a little bit more closely to see if there's a question that's either off or wrong or confusing for my students that I might want to rework. So I'm a big fan of the color grade in the grade center, and I do suggest to NAMs that you might have a course in your demos that's set up where there's just a little bit of that to do and it's easy to do. And the last thing is due dates. There are a lot of people with due dates that don't add due dates. Our instructors don't add due dates because there are a lot of programs out there that work just like our instructors. Kids are in and out and in and out, and so you can't really add a due date because it's a due date for all, not a due date for just one. However, if you do have a program that's working with a set schedule, more like a traditional school, the time investment used to add due dates to our assignments may be worth it because those due dates automatically show up on the calendar tool these days. To me, that's a big win for the student being able to see those on the calendar. So again, won't work for everybody, but it is a big plus. So again, the power, we provide our districts so many different ways to adapt. They can adapt the content, but anything else in these courses they can adapt. So gives them great power. Rose, thanks for joining us. Always, as we go through, just speak up if you have questions along the way. Okay? Any questions on modifications or what instructors can and cannot do if a district's using their own instructors? Okay. Point number 3. Point number 3 is an interesting point to me. We do have teacher guides in the course, but as you see in my first sentence here, it does seem that it always tends to be a pain point a little bit. And I'm not quite sure if it's a pain. Well, I probably know a couple reasons why it's a pain point. One, what people think are in the answer keys and what's in the answer keys sometimes are not always the same. So it's kind of an understanding of what is there. It's also probably a miss a little bit to how we make answer keys and when we say answer keys, what people think they really are. It's also an understanding that our courses are developed to be taught by highly qualified teachers. Okay, they are not necessarily courses that are designed and taught so that an English course should be taught by Donna Clapp, who's the science teacher. you honestly don't want me in an English class teaching. And vice versa, I know a lot of friends that are English teachers that really probably don't want to be teaching earth science or algebra or something along those lines. So that's also part of it. Our courses truly are designed to be taught by subject matter experts. Okay? But let's just go through what they are and what they aren't, and the fact that they're actually a little different. If you look at the image I have here of the old keys, each of those keys looks a little different, whether it's the shape, the size, the prongs, and so forth. Well, there is a little bit of truth to that within our courses as well. Not all answer keys will contain exactly the same thing. They are getting a lot closer to consistency. I would say the core courses, your math, your science, and your English especially, are about the same. Social studies will probably vary a little bit more, and we'll talk about why in a minute along those lines. But it's important to realize that. The pluses of our answer keys are this. In many of the courses, not all, especially when you start getting out into electives and things like that, may not hold true. But you're going to have curriculum maps. Where the curriculum maps exist, they are incredibly well done, and they are a selling point there. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that they exist in the teacher guides, okay? And they're actually on page 2 or 3 of the teacher guides if you're running through them for the most part. There's also an item closer to the end of the teacher guides where they exist, where you map the objectives of the quiz to the quiz, or the objectives to the quiz question. So a teacher can download this document, and they can see that objective X is covered on the second question of this quiz and is covered on question 6 of the unit exam. If I'm a teacher, that's extremely powerful to me, especially in this stage where people are trying to match, you know, their objectives and their standards to what is actually being assessed. So those are two things that I realize most people realize that answer keys, quote unquote, are in the teacher's guide. I'm not always sure that they realize those two things are there. So those are two very powerful items. Items that also exist are the answer keys, but answer keys are for written assignments only. They are not for the multiple choice questions. Answers keys for multiple choice questions are built in to the assessments themselves. There is no PDF document or Word document that a teacher can download and say, here are the answers to the questions. Okay? There are a couple of reasons for that. When we start using pools, that gets a lot more complicated because you're not going to have things in order. I have actually suggested to curriculum that teachers would still like to see that type of answer key available along that way. If those are things like, for those of you that are CSMs, you know, if those are things that you hear often, you know, having you guys relay back that suggestion back to curriculum, or Robert, if you hear that, Rose, you hear that, go back to curriculum, you know, so that they realize that that is an issue and it's not just one person saying that type thing. But they are built in along that way. Sometimes there are exemplars, but not always. And I know that's also another desire that I hear when I'm out training. There are some courses where those answer keys truly are rubric-based, and this goes back to our courses are being built for teachers that are certified in the area that the course is being taught. Well, when they're rubric-built, sometimes those are not as detailed or specific as if someone's trying to teach outside their area, so that's a frustration. Occasionally there are PowerPoint decks for support, like for a class lesson, or if you're doing a class connect session you could use. But that's not in many of the courses, but they are in some of the newer courses and so forth. So teacher guides can be a mix, and I would just make sure you hop into a couple of different ones and walk through a teacher guide so you can see what the mix is, because they really do vary quite a bit. But in the newer courses, the sciences, the math, the English, you will see many of these very nice features. Social studies has not been updated as frequently, so a lot of times their content and their resources do not have necessarily all those same tools. And if you think about it, Common Core affected math and science, so those courses were reworked, and the next generation science standards are why the science courses were reworked. So social studies just hasn't been touched quite as frequently in the last couple of years, so they don't always have some of these updates along with the electives. Questions on the teacher's guide, answer keys, any of that? Okay, don't be too quiet. Okay, the other one I have here, oh, next one I have is rubric creation. I actually just finished we are in the process of adding this to the user guide, and we will create a support video to go along with it. This is one of those things, Jessica, that occurred with the update that happened over the summer. And again, this is a time investment thing. Is it worth the time of the teacher to create a in Blackboard rubric that they can attach to not just one assignment, but if it's a rubric that would work for more than one assignment, they could attach it to multiple assignments. Is it worth it so that they would make grading very simple, where you see here, you can just see that there's a checkpoint. They can go down, check, 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 add their feedback, and it's right there. So both the rubric is used not just for the grading, but it's visible to both the teacher and the student to do so. So there is a way to be able to do that. Why are our courses not pre-built with our rubrics attached? Well, there are a couple of reasons. One, this is a new tool. Second, our courses get loaded lots of places other than just into Blackboard. And this is a Blackboard trait. So we wouldn't be able to, there are sometimes the value, the plus that we can load our content pretty much just about anywhere is awesome. But that means you can't always take your masters and fine tune them to be just for the platform that's our base platform. So it does mean someone would, even if they're using our rubric, need to kind of like type it in or copy it in quickly. But it's actually a very cool tool. And we are in the process, it should probably be live in the user guide within a week. We have added it to the user guide because we're noticing that there are enough people that want to use it that adding the link to the user guide, this was a plus. So rubrics, there's not a lot to be had here other than I will show you the connection of that or try to get that in the time we have, but it is actually a time saver on the back end if you create them on the front end. So it is a nice, cool feature. And you can also have ranges. This is an example where it just has exact points, but I did one the other day in a math class where it was high score was 3 or 4 points, so you still had some variation in there, and the low was 1 to 2 and unaccepted was 0. So there are a couple of different ranges on how you create the rubric, and if the teacher wants to use a rubric other than the ones we provide, they can create their own. Pointer number 5 is just a reminder that all courses are not created equal. They've been created at different time periods. They are created by different groups. I mean, if we take our extended learning or our extended electives, they're going to have, although we convert them to be in Blackboard, there's a little bit of slightly different feel there, and what might be in the teacher guides there are different. I'm going to point out middle school. I mean, we all had the wonderful addition of our new modern middle school, the math, the science, and the English, the language arts this year. However, the social studies middle school is the same social studies. There's a huge difference there. There's a huge difference in expectation of the student in those courses. If I look at the social studies course, they have 18 units that are relatively short conceptually. They do a unit basically a week in a traditional 90-hour semester, and they have an assignment and a quiz, and that's what they're expected to do, and that's kind of it. If you look at our new courses, well, they're expected to do a lesson a day in those courses, in the science, the language arts, and the math. The math are about 45 minutes in length, the language arts are about 90, and the math are about 60 minutes in length. So even there, the lesson a day isn't necessarily consistent because of the increase on that language arts item. You know, what you're going to find in the teacher's guide of those new middle school isn't, you know, versus the old middle school is going to be completely different between the electives and social studies and the new modern middle school courses. So being aware of that is important and making sure people realize that. E-dynamic courses, Middlebury courses, and do not and will not have the new special skin. Robert, for you in California, there are some special California courses. Those special California sections, and I believe, like, let's say biology is one, they are not going to have these new skins. So where most of our courses these days in most states will have the new wrench that have the read-along readers and have the word dictionary and have the one-word Spanish translation, if you're in a state where we have specialized masters because we've added or tweaked a few things, such as California and Florida or Georgia, those courses are likely not going to have presently those new tools and the new skin. So being aware of that is important. You know, the K-12 courses in Peak, I haven't had the chance to dive into those a lot. They've transitioned them so that they work and they function pretty similar, but again, you're probably going to see a few little differences. To me, my suggestion for those of you that go out and sell, and even for those of you that support, go into your demo, take a look at more than what you just show. And Rose or Robert, if you don't mind being put on the spot again, I'm just going to give my usual example, and I know it's my usual, but I think it's a good example. Could you tell me when you demo a science lab, which lab you demo?
This is Bob.
Yep.
I typically use the one that has the beaker and the it's photosynthesis.
Yeah, exactly. And I would have bet probably at least a month's paycheck, if not more, that was going to be your answer. And that's fine. You know why that's fine? That's a great lab. It's an awesome lab. However, I would also make the suggestion you go into a few of the other science labs and at least look at them so that you are aware of what some of the other science labs look like, because they don't all look like photosynthesis. So it's not saying please go change what you show, but I do think that it's beneficial for you to realize where courses are different. Go into a social studies course versus the new math or the new science or the new English courses. Look at how they appear. You're going to find that they're probably a little bit more text-like in most cases, things like that. Again, just because they haven't been touched as much. So being aware of that, I think, is beneficial. So that's my fifth pointer, is being aware. Yep, go ahead, Rose.
Donna, okay, so I do the same like Bob. And the reason being is that's one of the lessons where it has a demo script. So if you guys could help us get more demo scripts on other lessons, I'd be happy to demo them. But that's one of the reasons why I use that, because there's a whole, yeah.
That's a good point.
Anyway.
And Rose, and I'm not saying you shouldn't demo that one. That's an awesome one to demo. And I'm not even saying you have to show others, although at least showing or implying that not all are exactly like that, I don't think is a bad thing. But I'm not the salesperson. Always understand that. I'm always very upfront about that. But at least for you, even without a script, just go click on a couple of random labs just so you can see a little bit of the variety and you're aware, because I think that would even help how you demo possibly the other. Okay? So on that. But it's also not a bad idea. Heather and I don't know where those demo scripts come from, but it might be an idea, Heather, where we give them a little bit of variety and options along that. Bob?
Yeah, thank you. Going backwards a little bit to the e-dynamic, I have a presentation next month for a regional occupational program that's really into the career technical ed. And so those e-dynamic courses are the ones that they're going to focus on. I already discovered before I met with them the first time that the skin wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that it's not. Is there any plans in the future to ever have those features down at the bottom, their learning tools, work with those e-dynamic courses, or is that just something that we'll always avoid?
I don't know about the always. The issue is to have that skin, they have to be published on our comm server. So I don't know if those courses can be transitioned there. I have a contact where I can reach out to them to see if there's a plan to ever move, like the special state courses or the e-dynamic, things of that. I would say Middlebury, the answer is no, because they're on their own server. Their quizzes and the tests aren't even in Blackboard. So Middlebury, I would say not likely. On the others, I'll reach out to see if I can get an answer for you on it.
Thank you.
Yep. So, okay, before I do the quick view in the live scenario, my bonus pointers just real quickly. A lot of what I've talked about is related probably more to districts that are using their own instructors, but I do want to put a plug for when it's very appropriate and the power of our instructors. Obviously, there's an expense in there that sometimes leads districts not to go there, but also we probably all know for some districts it's probably best to start there and then transition through their own teachers. Our IST program, they have an engagement team. They do live orientations for students. It's possible to reach out to them and get support for how to get started and so forth. They reach out to students. The 24/7 academic chat, very strong group of people that have been trained across the board on lots of things. During main hours, there's a core subject teacher available, and during off hours, most of those teachers are still able to support the need of a student coming in. And if it's a physics question and there's an English teacher that's on board, they will connect them with one of the English teachers when it comes back onto regular hours. The National Class Connect sessions, where we have highly qualified teachers that are specialized in doing these live lessons. That's their job, is to do live lessons. Those are all posted in our courses. And then, of course, the certification of an instructor that's in that area. One of the places I see where struggles happen when districts use their own teachers is that they have one poor teacher that's trying to teach everything. And although there are a few of us out there, and not me included in that when I say us, I know I would not have been comfortable teaching outside my area. I mean, I could have gotten by in a few other subjects, but honestly, it would have been a struggle for me to do the student justice. So our IST team is a very powerful, very strong, competent team. They go way past competency. So where appropriate using our instructors, the power of our curriculum. It is rigorous. It is diverse. I don't know of anybody out there that is more diverse. And then just always awareness of our roles in our system and who has access to what. You know, it's our teachers and our students that have access to live data, not mentors and admins. Understanding what can and cannot be adapted. And some of these things take time, but some of them are worth the time. So along the way. So I'm going to just pause your view for a quick second, and then what I will be doing is just switching over to a live screen here. And when I switch over to the live screen, just show you a few of the things that we talked about. But as I'm doing that, if there are other things that either the conversation has prompted already or you've just remembered along the way, please let me know. So you should, hopefully, be seeing my new screen where I am in a course along the way. And I am actually here. I'm just going to demo a couple of things. along the way. So we were talking, building content and the modifications. Again, just as a quick reminder here, I'm going to pop in and look here, and the only thing that you always keep in mind that cannot be modified, if you ever have this globe where it goes out to content, no one, internally, externally, no one has the ability to change what's on this page. Okay? So other than that, just about everything can be changed, including assessments and quiz questions. Here are those learning tools that are right up top. This is the new skin where those tools do appear along the way. And it also has a very nice navigation down here on the bottom. Okay. The other thing was in the teacher's guide, and this Earth Science course is a great place to go for the teacher's guide. So with the teacher's guide, I come down here. Sometimes it's confusing for people because they say, oh, it's not available. That just means it's not available to the student. It is available to every teacher. It's an active link. And if I just go scroll through here, I want to point out a few of those things that are not as obvious in the teacher's guide. So here I am, and here is an example of that curriculum map. So if I open that curriculum map, notice here pops up, and it will have the unit name, the section name, the objectives, the assessments, the type, whether it's a computer or teacher-graded assessment, the plan, the approximate time, and so forth. The curriculum map, and not every curriculum map will look the same. If we hop into algebra or middle school, they're going to look slightly different, but all curriculum maps have definite value. I keep moving through. I'm going to kind of go through some of the items here. And here's a materials list if in your course that might need science materials and so forth. Here is an example of a course that does have PowerPoints to use either in a Class Connect session or in a whole class. I've seen these in a few courses. I honestly haven't seen them in a lot of courses though. So I wouldn't promise those. They're hit and miss. There are quite a few courses that have links that go out to websites that teachers can use, once again, in whole class instruction or also in Class Connect sessions. And here's a good example of those answer keys, rubric-based. If you're in our old courses with rubrics, what frustrates teachers is that the rubrics are all the same. They are the base 6-1 trait rubric. I will say in the newer courses here where if I come and I look at the Igneous Rock Lab rubric, if I open this, this is a rubric that is specific to this assignment. So there's one for soils, there's one for rocks. So curriculum development have heard the comment, and you will see that the rubrics are a lot more consistent with being specific. The one thing that would help teachers and is a plus for being able to add a rubric is this says 88 to 100% of the maximum points. Most teachers really don't want to do the math to figure out what that is. They'd rather see the points there. So along those lines. And then the last item in the teacher's guide, this is the chart to me that I think most people don't realize exists. This chart is where you can map and you can see here's the objective, and if you don't randomize the questions, you know that this objective will be covered on this question, this quiz assignment, question 1 and 2, the unit exam, question 1, and on the semester exam, question 45. To me as a teacher, if I'm worried about what's tested where, this document is invaluable. I always suggest teachers to actually download something like that to a folder on their desktop so that it's at their fingertips if needed. So along those lines. The rubric item, Jessica, I noticed you wrote in the checkbox that the rubric was like a cool new feature. I'm just going to show you quickly the process of being able to add. So here's a mineral identification lab. I come in here, I come to the assignment, and I click Edit because I'm going to adjust this. So when I adjust this, I come down here and there's this little Add a Rubric. Now if I've already created it, I could just select a rubric. But if I haven't created it yet, I can click Add New. And I just give it a name, and I'm going to call it Mineral Rubric. And you can see here, I mean, it's just as easy, if it's not actually a whole lot easier, for a teacher to create it here than to create their own and attach it. I can come in here, and I'm not going to use Novice, Competent, and Proficient. I'm going to actually come in here, and I'm going to edit the name, and I'm going to say maybe High Points, because that's a common thing that we use on our rubrics. I'm going to label this Low Points. And then I'm going to label this Unacceptable. Of course, then I want to spell it correctly, so it's nice that it actually pings me on that. Oh, I'll come out, save. And then I'm going to add my points, and I'm going to say my high is 4, my low is 2, I'm going to say 0, and I'm definitely changing this to points. Okay, so I'd have to go put in my points. You can do the same thing here. You can add specific. You then go through and you put your description in each of these cubes, so it's very easy. So it's great to see this. So once you have it created, you would save it and so forth. I'm going to hop to a class where I have this actually associated. So I have, I think I have it in this algebra course here. And on this assignment, oh, it was Algebra 2, I apologize. Second semester. And yes, Jessica, you can make the rubric visible to the student. I'm actually going to show you that option here, because you have the option whether you want to use this as just a secondary grading where you're just providing feedback using a rubric, but you're just going to grade by adding points, or you can actually use it by grading. So if I come to this assignment here, I do have attached a rubric already, so I'm going to go show that to you. And if I scroll down here, you can see after I've created my rubric, you have your choice to either use it for grading, so you actually check it off on the grade paper, or you can use it for secondary grading where you provide feedback but you don't actually assign point values. You also have the choice over here whether to show the rubric, to show it after grading only, or to show it prior to grade. So you can show it with the rubric scores prior to grading, you can show it after grading only, or you don't show it at all. So you have that option there as well. And then what happens is that rubric will appear. So if I come here and just click Edit so you can see the whole completed rubric, you can see here that we created a rubric with range. And our rubric internally was just 1, so someone would have to have created this. We actually did it for all 3 parts. So the student was supposed to do 3 problems. So we did it so that a teacher could just go click 3, 2, 1, and so forth. So the rubric area, again, can be a very powerful region for that along the way. Let me see if I actually have an assignment in the Grade Center associated with that so you can see it from the teacher-student end. Let me see if I don't know that I have a rubric attached to this assignment, and this one doesn't have an upload on it. I apologize for that, but let me see. What would normally happen, yeah, this one does not have it, but normally what would happen is where there was a rubric, all those checkoff boxes would appear right here, and a teacher would just go check, and a student would see them right here. It's really very, very cool. Here, though, you can see, Bob, you were asking about that drawing. You can see here, I can come in and I have 3 different colors to which I could add another drawing. I can change it to blue. I can do all of that. If I make a mistake, I can click on it and cancel it. I can get rid of it, so I can remove the drawing. But you have all these comment items where you can use a pointer, comment, or a text. You can highlight words. You can see here there was an example where we just did a draw and we added in what the items were. And the students see these right away. So all a part of that. So good with that as well. And then one last homeroom that I'm going to sneak us into is to show you that grading color that I showed you. So I'm going to come here, Grade Center, and I'm going to hop. Here you can actually see we have this set up with 2 colors. Yellow is that kind of 50 to 60 range, so less than 70% shows up yellow for a percent. And we have it set up, I don't think the student has earned anything, but here you can see red on the cumulative, because the student's just starting this course, is for the 50. So you can imagine if I had red on an assignment for a whole group of students, that's a really nice quick look for a teacher to be able to identify an assignment that they want to go. So I think we're getting close to wrapping up the time, but before everybody needs to jump off, are there any other questions, or do you want to see in the live session any of the other things that we actually talked about earlier?
Is it possible for us to get the recorded version of this?
Sure thing. I will have recorded it. We need to do a little bit of transposing, so it can't be sent out in the next hour, but I will work with Heather to make sure that these recordings get posted.
Great, thank you.
And my question is, what you just showed us in the grading center, is that anywhere in a written format that tells you how to do that?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things, actually, I'm just going to change my browser here for a quick second. One of the things that even I have, but I always like to emphasize, people can get to this from Peak Office. We have it out there as often as possible. I have this book linked not just even under my favorites, but I actually have it on my browser bar, and that's our resource page. The answer to your question is, if either from this Peak Home I can get to the user guide, or if I want to go to the classroom and see videos and so forth. But if I go to the instructor guide, and I even do the user guide here, and I do a quick find, and I do color coding. Okay. Actually, I'm probably going to do, you can do a couple. I think it will show up under color. Let me do a find here on the search. Okay, and I can, here's grading color codes. Okay, so I click grading color codes. Here's how to add it in a couple of quick, easy steps. Okay, and this is the range that I typically use, but you can add as many or more or whatever you want on that. And I will also, I'll be hosting a session for using your demo accounts, and this will be one of the things that I suggest you set up in one of your courses in your demo accounts, so you can demo that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, highlighting this area and also knowing that it's not, you can get to full-time school programs as well. That's where all your support client-based materials are for how-tos. Anybody else? Any other last questions? Well, if not, have a wonderful afternoon. I hope you learned or had emphasized a couple of new items about the classroom and so forth and the curriculum. And if you ever have any questions, you know I'm always available via email. So have a great day. It's great seeing everybody again, and I will talk to everybody later.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Bye.